Go.
All right, it is noon Eastern Standard Time. We are currently in Detroit, Michigan at the, correct me if I'm wrong, the 23rd Reawaken America Tour. We are doing, my name is Ivan Rakelin, Sarah McAbee. We're waiting on one individual that if he shows up, I'll introduce him. If he doesn't, well, sucks to be him. And we're going to be doing an update of what we did a couple of times prior to this at previous Reawakens, which is an update on the January 6th political hostage situation, as well as the investigations that are ongoing with or without a White House that is compliant, with or without a Congress that's compliant, with or without a legacy media that's going to be doing their jobs. That is why we're here, is to basically express to the independent media, and I would love for all of you kind of to basically showcase yourselves that you and the collective are now competing with Faux News, Criminal News Network, and MSLSD in the video landscape out there, and you're competing with Washington Compost, New Woke Slimes, Raw Sewage, or whether it be Roytards in the digital print space, okay? So first off, I gotta say thank you for that. Give yourselves, if you want, a round of applause. I will. Woo! I don't know, like 30 people or so out here with their separate respective platforms. So this is what I wanna get into. I wanna keep this to under 30 minutes. First thing I wanna talk about is a little recap of the January 6th investigation, how that has impacted family members of the now approaching 1,400 January 6th weaponized political targets of this belligerent, illegitimate regime, and then what we need to do to start to correct that and walk our way back from basically being on the precipice of our constitutional construct going down into the abyss. There is a way to it, and that's what I'm going to close off with. So first off, January 6th. If you want deep analysis on it, I've done many a podcast on it. You can go to my Rumble channel. But I want to give like a 2-minute overview for those that may be listening to this for the first time. January 6th was a reaction to a theory that I had presented to Kevin McCarthy and Mike Pence's Chief of Staff, Mark Short, that Nancy Pelosi caught wind of. And when she caught wind of it, she then thought the only way that I can stop this re-election from taking place was to deliberately facilitate the breach into the Capitol. And the way that she did that was under the authorities of Title II United States Code Chapter 29, which is the legal mission, authorities, and the entire framework of what the U.S. Capitol Police can do, within which jurisdiction they can do it, and how they can run that particular op. 2 sections in particular. Section 1967 talks about the jurisdiction, physical jurisdiction, and the second section is 1979 that talks about the authority on who gets to release security information related to the U.S. Capitol Police, meaning the CCTV footage, meaning the sworn testimony that is then provided by these U.S. Capitol Police officers. So, in the collective, the Fedsurrection that people call Fedsurrection, yes, it was supported by the DOJ's FBI. Yes, it was supported by, and he can go into much more detail on the DHS, CBP, HSI components to it. He being TRENNIS Evans, if you didn't know who that was. TRENNIS Evans. That's the third person I mentioned earlier. Thanks for coming. So when you look at it from that framework, look at those 2 sections, and I highly urge every January 6th defendant, journalist, family member, lawyer, anyone interested in exposing that, whether it's members of Congress such as Clay Higgins, Thomas Massey with the pipe bomb and Ray Epps investigation, Clay with the FBI buses, Loudermilk, who's chairing the really the only subcommittee entity within our government right now that is inching their way towards the truth about January 6th to prove what I'm saying, is Barry Loudermilk, congressman from Georgia. But he's up against problems in trying to get this information out, because above him on the committee sits Paul Ryan's hand-picked chairman for that committee, Brian Stile, who replaced Paul Ryan as a member of Congress from Wisconsin's 1st Congressional District. So I don't want to get too much detail on how we kind of unravel this. I just want people to understand that every single J6 defendant, family member, January 6th defendant, family member, and the ecosystem surrounding that, you are and we are being weaponized by the same individuals that went after General Flynn in 2016, that then created the censorship industrial complex in the 2018 and beyond timeframe that still exists on the fake books, on the commie tubes, and all these other Insta-garbage platforms. And they are continuing this path of destruction of our constitutional order. And as it relates to January 6th, the guy that ran, 3 people you need to know. The guy that ran that cover-up committee of the Fedsurrection was the Mike Pence's beloved Liz Cheney's handpicked and the Nancy Pelosi's beloved Benny Thompson handpicked staff director to cover up the January 6th Fedsurrection led by the Capitol Police Board and the leadership. Who was that? David Buckley, one of the 51 spies who lied that covered for the Biden criminal syndicate laptop.
Well, Ivan, I can't let you get off of Benny Thompson without talking about Benny. Benny Thompson was a member of Republic of New Africa. As a member of Republic of New Africa, a known domestic violent extremist racist group. Get that right. Known domestic violent extremist racist group that was on watch list by the FBI as early as the early 2000s. Benny Thompson was a member of that and was still promoting candidates there openly as late as 2012. So interestingly enough, with this individual that had this Republic, I want you guys to look into that. Go look up what the Republic of New Africa stood for, what their ideology was.
Benny Thompson, congressman from Mississippi, who chaired the Homeland Security Committee and then the January 6th cover-up committee. It should be, the full title of that committee should be called this: Mike Pence's beloved Liz Cheney and Nancy Pelosi's beloved Benny Thompson's January 6th cover-up committee, the Fedsurrection cover-up committee. So number 1, David Buckley. Number 2 is the House Sergeant at Arms at the time, Paul Irving, retired in the Tampa area somewhere. He was the Sergeant at Arms for John Boehner, Paul Ryan, and Nancy Pelosi. If there's one person that has dirt on all 3 of those individuals, it is Paul Irving, okay? And then the last person is the General Counsel at the U.S. Capitol Police, Thomas DeBias. Thomas Aquinas DeBias, known as Tad or Tadpole DeBias. He's the guy that uses the Title II U.S. Code Chapter 29 and those sections and beyond to then, on behalf of the cabal, decide who they're going to target via their target list. And then he's working with that David Buckley to then decide who to question during that January 6th cover-up committee's work to then create your criminal referrals of the 1,400 people.
Question, but how to question. Don't tell them about the coaching, Ivan, and how that worked.
So, this is how it probably worked. Pelosi says, hey, why don't you go ahead and criminalize the following list of people? Work with Yogananda Pittman, the head of Intel and Interagency Coordination Division, who we just elevated to be the chief of Capitol Police for a certain period of time. And then while Jamie Raskin is running the impeachment hoax 2 to cover up for the Fedsurrection, I want you to concurrently after that create the J6 Fedsurrection cover-up committee and then start to create your Patriot lists. So my idea of the deep state target list, it's exactly what they did to us. But what they did to us was to go after those First Amendment election justice rally attendees, both outside and inside the Capitol. We are going after those that clearly violated treason laws, seditious conspiracy, spying, First through the 10th Amendment.
Title
different
18,
different parts of the of the entire Constitution, the the 7 articles, right? So let me kind of close with this for the intro. You need to know who is coming after us. It's not a deep state. When it comes to January 6th, it is a specific set of core individuals. David Buckley, not only the ones that we know that were on the committee, these are the worker bees that people don't know. David Buckley, the staff director. Paul Irving, the House Sergeant at Arms, and Tad Tobias, the General Counsel, who is still there to this day, weaponizing and working with the DOJ as he works and develops doctored, manipulated CCTV footage and doctored, manipulated, coerced, false testimony of U.S. Capitol Police officers, and then sent over to the DOJ, so they use that doctored evidence to criminalize against Sarah's husband. And what does that do? What is the impact of that? The floor is yours.
Thanks, Ivan. It's an honor to stand up here with TRENNIS and Ivan. And I think this is so important because it's not talked about a lot on main stage. I'm not going to take long. I'm an advocate for January 6 defendants and their families. There's almost 1,500 of them, and they're still going after them every single day. They're still doing FBI raids. They're still flashbanging people's houses, pre-dawn raids. It's not stopping. And it's not stopping because we continue to allow it to happen. We, the people, allow Yogananda Pittman to sit in San Diego or San Francisco area in Berkeley, right? Because there's not enough people putting pressure. So Ivan, we talked about this earlier, he's going to talk about what we can do as individuals. But I want to tell you, so many people come up to us and they feel so sorry for us. Oh, I was there on January 6th. Well, what are you doing? If you were there on January 6th, what are you doing today to help those 1,500 people that the federal government went after? Faith and fear cannot coexist. So you better start doing something because they are continuing to go after Americans. But it doesn't matter if Donald Trump gets back in and these people are let out tomorrow. It doesn't matter with what Ivan says in the future, that it doesn't have to be about the White House or the people in government, about we the people doing it. 3.5 years of these people's lives are gone. They've lost their homes, they've lost their friends, they've lost their family members. There is no amount of time and no amount of money that's going to get that back for these individuals. Vindication is great, but that's where we step in as advocates.
Retribution is greater.
Yeah, absolutely. But here's the thing. After all of that is done and justice is truly served, these individuals have lived in a box for 3 years. They've been told when they can eat, when they can shower, when they can talk to their family. They've been told when they can see their family, and most of them didn't see their families for 2 years. 2 years of their children's life went by and they couldn't lay eyes on them. Grandkids were born, grandparents were lost, parents were lost. There is nothing that vindication is going to do to get that back. But we, the people, can walk beside them when they get out, because this journey is far from over. It's far from over when they walk out of those prison doors. They need help becoming contributing members of society. My husband's a law enforcement officer. If he's not vindicated, he's never going back into that career field. And there's many people that are like that. Veterans, white collar workers, blue collar workers, so many people out there like that. And that's where Ivan is going to step in and say, this is what you can do now. But people like TRENNIS and I that run organizations for January 6th defendants, that's where we come in. And we say, this is how you can help. Because re-entry is going to be a big problem for the 220 individuals that are still locked up today.
And so now we're going to thank you, Sarah. Now we're going to talk about some of the things that can be done to start to create, to off-gas the pressure that these belligerent, illegitimate actors have applied to family members and defendants, and how we turn the tide from defense to stalemate to then offense, so that they go ahead and face the eye for an eye methodology that I prefer, according to Leviticus. So one method is what TRENNIS has actually going to break some news here today on what he's working on. TRENNIS, what do you got going on for pushback?
Before I go into pushback, I think they mic me up. I think they got me, but you guys I've got enough mics. We're good, right? So anyway, the reality is, okay, now I'm triple mic. So like triple vax, triple mask, right? Listen, you guys heard an incredible passion out of Sarah McAfee just now. Her husband. I mean, Seriously, raise your hand if you don't have a loved one, somebody in your life you care about, a mother, a father, a son, a child, somebody, and that's your person, your rock, your number one. Whoever that person is, you imagine they're going through this for 3.5 years. It's unjust, it's unfair, it's wrong, it's criminal, and it's so despicable. It is an absolute stain on our country, and we, the people, have to own this, because not enough of whoever's out there listening have become active enough to get something done, to push back. They go, oh shucks, well don't worry, Trump's going to get in soon. Or oh don't worry, we got him, God's got him, it's in God's plan. I'm going to tell you this, screw that. God expects that you get involved. That doesn't mean you get to lean on a shovel and pray for a hole. So don't give me about prayer warrioring if you're not taking action, because God said it takes action as much as it takes prayer. So don't give me just that nonsense and don't worry, I'm praying for you. You're praying for 1,500 Americans. 78% of the people that were initially detained pre-trial with no bail were law enforcement, like Colton McAfee, and veterans of these United States. These people paid the ultimate price in some cases, or put their life on the line for you. They were willing to put their life on the line for you, and you can't give something back to what we're doing? Sarah, you make getting rich off January 6th? Neither am I don't get paid. I've done this for 3 years straight for other people. And Sarah knows, when we got those videos together, we were not, hallelujah, we're going to be able to, we got the audio, we got everything together. They told, in Ronald's case, they told him at bond there was no audio to the video. Gary McBride finds the audio, sends it to me, we get it downloaded, we send it to Sarah, it's inadmissible. What? The audio exonerates her husband, but it's inadmissible from the body cam? These are the kind of atrocities I'm talking about. That's just an example, and I'm using Sarah because Sarah and I've known Sarah since 21.
The reason why it's inadmissible, because it runs counter to the false testimony that was already coerced and compelled from these U.S. Capitol Police officers or MPD officers before it was sent to the DOJ for prosecution.
Well, and then what have they hidden behind the scenes? There's so much more. And like Ivan and I said, we'll get down and we'll come around and do some stuff with you guys. The counterterrorism unit, the HSI Homeland Security guys, when we broke that in the Proud Boys case, I want you guys to remember something. A lot of people never got this because I was head down in trial and I wasn't coming to events at Clay's events for a while. We were head down on that. And I want you to remember this. We exposed over 40 agents that were previously undisclosed to defense counsel. Okay? That was 13 MPD, 8 officers from the Special Narcotics Unit, and some of you have seen the video of them urging people to go, 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 get in there, go. And then what about the other people? Well, that's what they sealed under national security. Judge Kelly sealed that, and it's far worse than that. 13,955 lines of communication came out of an FBI agent that failed to scrub something. We got access to that. We read it. After the syntax and line breaks and removals, we got 6,000 plus usable lines of communication. And we saw 5 of us. And we saw who was talking at NSA. And we saw what level this occurred at. And we started talking about it in the media. One piece of it got out. And the judge immediately shut it down and ordered anyone in possession of it in violation of national security. The following day, Laura Logan reported on this. I dropped the story with her. She reported on it, and that was it. It was done. And no one's ever touched it again. Thank God some of us have photographic memories, and I can regurgitate that. So, anyway. Anyway, I'm going to go back to this. So here we go.
Motivate crusades out
what
there.
What can you do, right? Besides, okay, I don't want to know. I'm tired of throwing the remote at the TV. I'm tired of kicking the refrigerator and saying this is crap, right? I'm tired of getting mad and going outside and cussing at the moon. There is something you can do. You can get engaged. You can get involved. Get behind these organizations, the people that are doing something. Or, what would be even better? You could start filing cases. Oh gosh, I don't know how to file cases. How many of you guys know my legal work and what I do? I'm not a lawyer. I'm not trying to pretend to be a lawyer. Not posing as a lawyer. I'm not playing a lawyer on TV. But I'm going to tell you what, I'm churning out some of the best legal work in the country. Matter of fact, I contend that any attorney that wants to say they can do better, why didn't you? I was the person that intervened in Colorado in the Norma Jean Anderson case where they wanted to keep Trump off the ballot. My amicus brief won for the Supreme Court there. But because my team of people that I surrounded myself with gave a damn about this country. And we worked hard and
are not cowards.
We investigated people like John Mosley and George Pallas and other great people that care about this country. And there's more. There's Barry Silverman out in California. Yep. I've dug up people that are retired attorneys, disbarred attorneys with an axe to grind. Now, I didn't know what to do. I didn't know what I just had a lot of fight in me. And I started turning that fight into action. And that action now has gotten to the level where today, at about this time, somewhere around now, going on the docket and filing is now a new Supreme Court filing against what happened to Donald Trump in New York. So I'll leave some copies of this around for you guys and let you see that. This was my idea. I learned enough about the law and the injustice that happened to people like Colton Mack and the Proud Boys and the Oath Keepers and the other people that I helped. In 3 years' time, that turned that education into a useful tool. But it didn't happen by sitting at home and throwing the remote. It happened because I got active and got involved. And that's why we are where we are today, making this kind of action happen. How many attorneys do you think have the canonies to go file this thing, Ivan, when I file it?
Probably less than a handful.
Why? Because they'll get disbarred. They'll get sanctioned. That's what they do to conservative attorneys now. We've seen it. So guess what? We figured out another method. I don't go around begging attorneys to go represent me. I go around in legal theory and having discussions, and I go file it. You can't sanction me. You can't disbar me. I'm a pro se litigant, and I'm doing this why? Why are we stepping out and helping Trump? Why are we? Because it aids the January 6th defendants. And isn't this our country, and they're trying to take the guy that we want to have a chance to vote for off the ballot?
If I may real quick, Tris. So, you're not done yet. To contextualize that, all 1,400 plus defendants, to include President Trump, are defendants because Nancy Pelosi's committee that the staff director David Buckley created the evidence to then criminalize everybody and then distribute that evidence to DC, to Jack Smith, to Fani Willis, to Alvin Bragg indirectly, to prosecute the electors in Georgia, Wisconsin, Arizona, Michigan, and maybe it might turn out Pennsylvania as well. Why? Because those are the people that already know and are fighting to expose the illegal 2020 election. That's why everybody showed up on January 6th. This is all an entire op, and it's all interconnected.
I got news for you. That list he just came, I'm coming for you, and so is the rest of America. We're tired of your crap. We're tired of this. The lawfare and the excuses and the attacks. I don't care what you do to me. I'm past that point. You already put my 13-year-old son at gunpoint and got trigger-happy people ginned up, calling me a domestic terrorist and telling them that we beat people to death on January 6th with a fire extinguisher, and then laid poor Brian Sicknick in state and made him a patsy of your ridiculous movement and ideology to impeach Trump. And who were some of those people? Let's see, the Norm Isons, the people that work with Crew, and organizations, the Open Society organizations. You mean to tell me that Pelosi and all those people didn't know that Brian Sicknick was never bludgeoned with a fire extinguisher? That there was no physical indication of any damage? But yet we have the same coroner that told you the results of George Floyd? He was there for who? Brian Sicknick? What the hell did you get from over here to over here, states away, making decisions about deaths? And Roseanne Boylan? What's wrong with that picture? But guess what? When Michael Sherwood promised you shock and awe, and the people that came before, and when they brought D'Antuono over from Michigan, just before January 6th, after the little Fedsurrection operation that they ran on the Michigan militia, the Herschel, on what they did to the governor there. All of these players, it just can't be. It's just an awful big coincidence. We see your conspiracy. We know what you've done. We know the lies, and I'm telling you where this is going. And you're getting a preview into where it's coming from. It's coming from the heart of America. It's coming from the pissed off patriot. It's coming from the mother and the wives and the people that are hurting. And it's coming from the people that you put my kid at gunpoint. And we're coming for you. We're coming for you in the courts. And we're going to come for you legally. But I want to make sure you get justice in the same fair courts we got it in. I want to make sure that good men and women and Christians in this country get to sit and preside as jurors over these trials. That's in judges. That's where we need to be as America. And we will hold people, and you set a bar now. You said that this is what can be done in New York. So the Supreme Court either answers this and stops Trump's deal, or you're going to have to stop my action in Texas when we're in Throckmorton, Texas. And you want to talk about, they like to think we're all hillbillies and we're meth head tow truck drivers and all we want to do is kill them. That's absurd. I have never seen a more peaceful group of people that advocate for peaceful action, legal peaceful action and solution. And we have that ability, but don't push it too far, folks.
Okay, now, excellent. Thanks, Trennis. What else can we do? That's the legal aspect that you can take on yourselves. If you want advice, I'm going to throw him under the bus. He's going to give you his contact information to be able to advise and guide you through on how to go through the pro se route. I'd be happy.
I'm the secretary, so I'll just forward it right on.
I was just going to, you beat me to it. But I also will provide you my information so that we can come up with strategies on how to push back. The other component, which a lot of people don't realize, just like what they did to us, and I'm going to remind folks, what did they do to us? Well, let me give some examples. Do you remember when there was an older gentleman in Florida, in Ron DeSantis' state, that was live streamed, swatted, raided, armed robbery, burglary victim, and a victim of kidnapping? Does anybody remember that? Roger Stone was a victim of all that at the hands of America's #1 domestic terrorist organization, the FBI. Okay? Number two.
Extortionist operation.
Yeah. Number two, who else was kidnapped? Peter Navarro was kidnapped at an airport. Who was the victim of armed robbery?
Mike Lindell.
In Hardee's.
Mike Lindell. Mike Lindell.
Exactly, Mike Lindell. Scott Perry, at the time, the House Freedom Caucus chairman. What's the common thread with all of this?
FBI.
January 6th, right? FBI. Who's behind it? Well, I already named the names. Let me say them again. David Buckley, the Benny Thompsons, the Liz Cheneys of the world, right? Jamie Raskin, the same people. So,
Don't forget Stephanie.
there's a lot of people. I got a deep state target list that I've created with my team. That's only the tip of the iceberg. I get it. People are like, whoa, what about this person? What about that person? Yes. Every single question you ask is probably going to be a yes. They needed me on the list. But we got to start somewhere. So how does that work? Who saw the video that went completely, I guess, not so viral of me, I guess, educating Zoe Chase from the National Poison Radio? Did everybody see that? Okay, so there was an individual that put together that video, that exchange that I had with her, and put faces to names. When you know exactly the enemy by name, date, place, transgression, down to the pixel level, and you know where they live, you know where they go to school, or, you know, let's just say everything that these domestic terrorists are doing to then conduct the precursor activity before they conduct a live raid at his home, her home. What is that precursor activity?
Premeditated.
That's called doing a little investigative work. That's what we're involved in. So as we then take that investigative work, like I said at the beginning, with or without a White House, with or without a Congress, with or without a judiciary at the federal level, we are going to guarantee consequences, also known as accountability, also known as retribution. How, people ask? Well, we have this thing called the Constitution. The federal government exists at the mercy of the state legislatures, at the mercy of the states. at the mercy of the law enforcement of the state. AGs, Ken Paxton, if you're listening in, listen closely. Let's see here, Chris Kobach in Kansas, if you're listening in, listen closely. Name the county sheriff, Darleaf up the street in Michigan here, or in Clackamas County in Washington is another good one. Multiply that by every single red county in the country. There's probably over 2,500 counties where there's a, quote, red sheriff. And if they're not red enough, then you might want to remove and replace them with somebody that is willing, ready, and able to do exactly what Alvin Bragg in the DA's office is doing. And that sheriff needs to work with that DA in the red counties. Because that's what they just did.
Well,
Fonnie Willis.
But what they did was a civil conspiracy under RICO that Ivan and I have been talking about, so I don't know how much of that he wants to. You want to go on that?
Touch on it real quick. Touch on it.
So I don't know how many of you are familiar with civil conspiracy, civil RICO. So
Yeah, go ahead.
We've been putting together a list. Ivan has a list. I have a list. There's other people who've been working on this list. We have a flow chart. We know who talked to who. We have communication dates, times. We have communications themselves. And not only that,
Reverse FISA works both ways, America.
This is a people
You spy
version.
on us, the technical capability is there for that data to be had by others.
Well, it's amazing what happens when people start squirming when you talk about this and you watch communications and where they go. So it's called a trap. And they've already been in. So a lot of them have their hand right back in the cookie jar covering their tracks. You get into open society organizations, George Soros founded organizations. Georgie Boy gets a lot of attention, right? Let me paint this picture. So if you were an attorney working for an open society organization like Crew or some of these others, maybe, just for example's sake, and you were working for them and you communicated with certain people about what you knew was illegal activity or what they knew was illegal activity, crimes ongoing or future crimes. You only have ACP or attorney-client privilege, right, when you're talking about a crime you may have committed. You don't have privilege for crimes you're going to commit or in the midst of committing. So what's wrong with that? So what happens when we get to have the legal communications between these individuals that represented those organizations that then serve to do impeachments, that then serve to take on roles in bureaucracies, and then serve in government? Well, it's interesting that none of that's protected. None of it's privileged, and we get to see it all. The civil rules of discovery are going to be a hell of a ride, folks. Stay tuned for what's coming there.
And to finally close, this is the big one. And I know most of you here have heard it. The person, the one individual in the entire planet that has the most evidence to prove to when you talked about the jury pool, to show to the jury pool that you are helping us to get to with the 30 people that are here or so on your live streams, on your recordings as you push this out. The one person sitting on the biggest trove of evidence to release to the whole world of this seditious conspiracy dating back to 2016, the targeting of General Flynn, George Papadopoulos, Carter Page, Paul Manafort, Roger Stone, President Trump, the entire apparatus of who was involved in that weaponization. And you can watch Flynn movie, Deliver the Truth, whatever the cost, to get a little bit more perspective on who those people are, to prove all of that. And have geotagged location data related to those communications so that some of those communications then could be applied to the county that you live in.
Yeah, name the county.
The state that you live in, so that you can present that to your DA, sheriff, AG. Is a guy by the name of Elon Musk. So if you're listening in, Matt Taibbi and and Michael Schellenberger, as you continue to develop and showcase with your last Twitter files dump, the FDLI, the CIA, at this point in time, you need to match the deep state target list, mine, yours, see who has a Twitter account, take their entire direct message content the GPS location, geotagged data of those communications, and then let's line it up with the sheriffs that are clamoring, with the DAs that are clamoring, with the constituents that are clamoring that will be the jury pool, to then present that at either a civil action or a criminal action to then hold these people to maximum account. And at the state level, some states have something called capital punishment. It would be so glorious for capital punishment to go from the O spelling to the A spelling in Texas, in Louisiana, in Kansas, in Florida, and the list goes on as we start the retribution cycle.
If I think what I've been saying, I gotta go one more here. What I've been saying, you took $1,500, right? And now you took one more, Trump, and I think that was the one that was one too many for a lot of people, right? So what we're saying is, if you did that with a handful of counties and a few federal districts, what do you think's happening when we exercise thousands of counties and DAs and hold accountable those people and start that process? You know how many indictments that's going to be? You know how many Americans are sick and tired of names like Tommy, right? I think that it's time to go. So anyway, all right, does anyone have questions for me or Sarah or Ivan? Ann?
So you mentioned you're holding something in Throckmorton, Texas, which I find very interesting, because isn't that a case referenced in 1878? Fraud vitiates everything.
Oh, that's interesting.
Okay, so on that,
Their history. Well, Ian, it's not fair. You're a pretty good study of the law. I didn't know that was going to make sense to
I
you.
thought of that as soon as he said that.
so on that vein, two questions. One, have you all done your homework on the sheriffs that you believe will be standing with the people to make arrests based on the evidence that hopefully say like Elon Musk and the Twitter files could generate? And two, have you done their homework? Because we have done a lot of FOIAs and discovered that these oaths of office for these public officials, DAs, federal judges, etc., are non-existent, illegitimate, deficient, whatever.
Ann had two questions for those of you who couldn't hear.
So how do we adjudicate?
We explored the sheriff and their position and the DA and their position. Well, Ann, we counted on you. You started that work long ago. So, and Ivan, you guys were at this process a while back.
If I may, yeah, thanks. The short answer to Throckmorton is yes, fraud vitiates everything. I'm still trying to correct this 2020 illegal election. That's the end of that, because I can go forever on that. Number two, as it applies to vetting and communicating with sheriffs, last night I had a very long conversation with a guy by the name of Sheriff Mack, who is the president of the, what's the name of the organization? Constitutional Sheriffs and Police Officers Association. So conversations are being had. Plans are being had to implement what I'm discussing.
To uphold the law.
To uphold the law. Number two, immediately after the RNC convention in July, I will be attending the Texas equivalent to a Sheriff's Association event. Are you going to be there?
That's so strange. I think I'm going to be at the same convention. That's odd.
And we're going to be communicating with sheriffs there. Approximately, there are 254 counties in Texas, and approximately 254 sheriffs will be there. We may have an opportunity to talk to one or more to kind of develop something. Wouldn't you say?
I will tell you that my inbox has been interesting lately with the amount of sheriffs have an interest in seeing Texas uphold the United States Constitution and preserve the way of life that we've come to expect, as was constitutionally guaranteed.
And my inbox is eerily similar to yours.
And some of these people talk to both of us. Anyway.
So I think that answers your question.
So
things are moving nicely. And you being here are making things move even nicer and smoother. Because we are educating the jury pool that is then going to be waiting, lurking. Please call me as a juror, please. And when 100% of your constituents are saying that, You can't strike the entire voting jury pool in a county. You're going to have 12 jurors. And when 100% of them know what happened, then guess what, Andy McCabe? When you pass through one of these counties, the first thing that comes to my mind is a phrase called live stream swatting raid. I don't know why, but that just comes to my mind.
Well, let me say this. So what I'm trying to tell people in this, when I say this, when I say don't push it, what I'm talking about is we have our own brand of very legal opportunity to protect the United States Constitution and the people that it serves to protect. And if they want to play stupid games, they're going to win stupid prizes, unless they want to be relegated to just these little bubbles around the country.
That was an easy plug for the bottom of my shirt.
Yeah, there we go, the plug. We got to get my
Fool around and find out. No,
you know,
FAFO.
Yeah, I know. So, I fool around, find out. So here we go. Here's what I'm going to give you this last part. I'm going to tell you right now, so by using the law and what we're doing and these efforts, I urge my people out there, it's, I hear the saber rattling, I hear the frustration. Listen, folks, this is not as bad as you think it is. It's bad, but we're not in a free fall. We have started to come back up through this process because we figured out how to fight back. So to the saber rattling crowd out there, to those guys, we have a lot of constitutional runway left, okay?
100%.
And then look, and as tough as there's a lot of men out there, a lot of veterans, a lot of people that would, if it came to it, would do things to stand up and save the country from an absolute dire situation. We are not there yet. We are in a dire situation where you must vote. We're in a dire situation.
But we're not stopping you from preparing for that.
But yeah, no. I'm just saying you may be prepared for anything. I would always prepare for the worst case scenario. I'm packing the umbrella on a sunny day.
Yeah.
But more importantly, I like to remind people out there, guys like me and Ivan, by using the law, are protecting you from the wrath of the Sarah Maccabees and the mothers. I'm going to tell you, I've been around these people and I've heard the passion. That's a wrath. You better hope that I get you in courts. Yeah, motivation.
No, Sarah and what's going on with Mickey Whithoff and all the other J6 families, it continues to motivate me. I'm embarrassed watching the movie, right? Or just watching what's going on with it. I'm embarrassed that I am allowing this to happen. And so I have to step out of my comfort zone of being retired to basically get in the fight and say, you know what, this is unacceptable. It is absolutely unacceptable. Just like I said in the movie with General Flynn, when it's unacceptable to me, you weaponize me against you. And that's exactly the same thing that they did to TRENNIS. You weaponized us now against you, and now you're about to find out. And if you want to find out exactly what I think they plan on doing from now through November into January 2025, and what the strategy needs to be to counter that, at 2:30, I'll be saying that on stage. And if you guys have any more questions, we can stick around for a couple more minutes.
Sarah,
Question?
can you give an update on your husband? I got here a little bit late. How are his spirits? And
He's okay, one day at a time for sure. He's serving his time in Minnesota. We're from Tennessee. There's supposed to be a 500-mile rule. He's 800 miles away from home. He was sentenced in February to 70 months, and he was found guilty on all charges back in October.
is there going to be an appeal?
Yeah, we're going through the appeals process, but unfortunately that's a much longer process than what we had to endure of 26 months pre-trial, so he will serve the rest of his time should nothing happen. He'll get out in August of 2026.
26.
Until Trump gets in office. It'll be out much sooner.
That's our hope.
Praying for you.
Thank you.
Last one. Last question. Thank you.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
Thank you.